In this Patreon video, we're going to examine several different types of defensive strategies, both in 9-ball and 8-ball. Then we'll set up different 8-ball and 9-ball scenarios and go through different defensive options. These shots will also be available in the defensive strategy ebook available on Patreon. So if you're ready, let's get started. One skill you'll need to master to take your defensive game to that next level is the stun follow shot. This type of safety comes up quite a bit in both 8-ball and 9-ball. And the reason this is a powerful shot is because it allows the shooter to send the object ball around the table while only moving the cue ball a few inches. For instance, in this 9-ball game, we're on the 4-ball, we have a few different options as far as playing a defensive shot. We could thin the 4-ball, leaving the cue ball over here by the side rail. But this safety leaves a fairly easy kick shot. A better option is to send the object ball around the table and leave the cue ball behind the 6-ball. It's often a good idea to add distance to a safety in the off chance your cue ball doesn't end up behind the blocker ball. The key to this shot is striking the cue ball just above center to give the cue ball enough forward roll to send it behind the 6-ball. Here's a similar layout. Once again, we're going to send the 4-ball around the table and the cue ball behind the 6 and 8-ball. You'll need to spend some time on these stun shots to develop a feel for where you need to strike the cue ball based on the speed you'll be using. In this 9-ball game, we're on the 4-ball, we don't have a good offensive shot. One defensive option is to play a stop shot, sending the cue ball to the other end rail. While this safety works, it leaves a fairly easy jump shot for your opponent. A better option is to use a stun follow shot to send the cue ball close to the 5-ball. Ideally, you want the cue ball close enough to the 5-ball so the opponent can't use the bottom side rail to kick at the 4-ball. In this 8-ball game, we're on the solids, but we don't have a good offensive shot, and these two solids over here are tied up. A good strategy here is to bank the 4-ball into both solids, breaking them out. And if we use a stun follow shot, we can put the cue ball behind the 8-ball. So even if we miss the breakout, we still have our opponent locked up. In this 8-ball game, I don't have a good shot, and on top of that, my 5-ball is tied up. A good defensive strategy here is to bank the 2-ball 3 rails and put it near my problem area. Also, if we use a stun follow, we can attempt to put the cue ball behind the 8-ball. In this 9-ball game, I'm on the 5-ball, but I don't have a good offensive shot. If I can bank the 5 off the end rail with a stun follow shot, I can send the cue ball around the 8-ball for a nice safety. A strong defensive strategy that comes up quite often is leaving the object ball in this area near the end rail, while sending the cue ball toward the other end rail. You'll often see this type of shot played in 9-ball. It's the type of shot that definitely requires practice since you'll be controlling the speed of both cue ball and object ball. In this first 9-ball example, we're on the 5-ball and we need to leave our opponent a tough shot. So in this shot, we're going to try to bank the 5-ball to this area here and try to land the cue ball near the side rail by the 7-ball. I'll be using a touch of left spin to help slow down the cue ball's speed. Here's a similar defensive shot. We're going to bank the 4-ball to this target area on the end rail and try to leave the cue ball behind the 9 and 7-ball. Our first priority on shots like this is to make sure the object ball lands in the target area in case we don't hide the cue ball. The key to this shot is to have a target spot on the first end rail to aim the 4-ball at, so we can send it back to our target area on the other end rail. When players first try the shot, they tend to overcut or undercut the shot. Focus on shooting the object ball straight toward the end rail. We'll shoot the shot again, but this time we'll put the 9 and 7-ball on the side rail, and this takes away the cue ball's hiding area. So I'm really going to need to focus on the object ball's speed. The closer I can get it to the end rail, the better. Here's a typical end of game situation in 9-ball. We're on the 8-ball, we can either try a tough bank shot or a safety. If we can send the 8 ball to this area by the second diamond of the end rail, we can leave our opponent without a good offensive shot. It may help to use reverse spin on shots like this to help slow down the cue ball. Here's another endgame situation that comes up quite often in 9 ball. The goal in this shot is to bank the 8 ball 2 rails toward our target area on the end rail, and at the same time send the cue ball toward the other end rail. Make sure you take your time when shooting the object ball. The goal is to strike the side rail around here. Now our angle in the 8 ball is a little different, so we're going to change how we shoot the shot. This time we're going to send the 8 ball around the table toward the second diamond area on the other end rail. You'll be using center on the cue ball, which should send it toward the 9 ball, making the opponent's next shot even tougher. Here's a great shot that you'll sometimes see top players use. In this shot, we're going to bank the 6 ball toward our target area, and at the same time we'll be sending the cue ball toward the other end rail. We're going to try and land the cue ball behind the 9 ball. In this example, I underhit the 6 ball slightly, but it's still a tough shot for my opponent, even if the 9 ball wasn't blocking the shot. Just like in the previous example, always be aware of any blocker balls that you can put the cue ball behind. For instance, in this shot, my goal is to bank the 7 ball toward the target area and land the cue ball behind the 8 ball. But our main goal on this shot is to land the 7 in the target area. Ending up behind the 8 ball would be a bonus. But either way, our opponent has a tough shot. There are many times in 8 ball when you can attempt tough offensive shots without giving up the game. For instance, in this game of 8 ball, we're on the solids and we don't have a good offensive shot. We could softly strike the 3 ball, leaving our opponent tough, but a better option is to play the bank shot on the 2 ball with running English. If we play the shot this way, the cue ball will naturally be heading to this area, leaving our opponent safe if we miss. If we pocket the 2 ball, now we have a shot on the 3 ball and a chance to win the game without giving up our turn. In this game of 8 ball, we're on the solids and we don't have a good offensive shot. We could play a safety off the 1 ball, but a slightly better option is to play an offensive shot with a safe built in. So in this example, we're going to bank the 5 toward the corner, sending the cue ball toward the end rail. In this situation, we're on the 8 ball and we really don't have a good shot except for the long bank shot into the corner pocket. If we do attempt this shot, we can use a stun draw shot to put the cue ball close to the 10 ball. So now if we miss the bank, our opponent won't have a shot. Here's another example of banking the 8 ball and at the same time putting the cue ball close to an opponent's ball in case we miss. This shot requires a stun follow shot with a firm stroke. In this shot, we're on the 8 ball and we have a tough shot to pocket it in the corner pocket. If you're confident in this type of shot, then you can disregard trying to leave your opponent tough and just go all out to make the shot. If this is a low percentage shot for you, then you may want to send the cue ball to this area in case you miss. In this situation, we're on the 8 ball and we have a couple choices. We could play a safety by softly hitting the 8 ball into the 10 ball, leaving the cue ball on the end rail. The problem with this is that our opponent has a few good options in reply, and now our 8 ball is tied up. A better option may be to call this corner pocket using a stun follow shot. This shot gives us a chance to win the game and at the same time doesn't leave our opponent a shot. In this 8 ball layout, we're on the 8 ball and we have two options. We can pocket the 8 into either corner pocket. If you're comfortable with pocketing the 8 ball in this corner pocket, then it may be a good idea to go all out and try to make it. If you're not confident in this shot, then a better option is to try to pocket the ball into the top right corner pocket. By playing the shot this way, the cue ball will naturally be heading toward the top side rail, which will leave our opponent tough in case we miss the shot. In this last example, the 8 ball and 10 ball are tied up, but we can try a carom shot into the side pocket, since by playing the shot this way, we'll be sending the 10 ball toward the in rail. We'll be using a little draw on the cue ball to make our opponent's shot even tougher. So always be looking for shots like this that give you a chance to win the game without selling out. There are times in 8 ball and 9 ball when having your ball tied up with another ball can be used against your opponent. For instance, in this 9 ball game, I'm on the 4 ball, but I don't have a good offensive shot. The good news is that the 5 ball is right next to the 4 ball, which means if we can perform a stop shot on the 4 ball, we can lock up the cue ball next to the 5. When shooting safeties like this, make sure you use a firm speed. The goal is to have the object ball at least reach the top side rail. In this 9 ball game, I have a tough shot on the 5 ball for the top left corner pocket. Since the 8 ball is next to the 5 ball, I can bank the 5 off the end rail and put the cue ball close to the 8 ball. When I attempt this shot, the goal is to cut off the top side rail so my opponent doesn't have an easy kick shot. So instead of ending up here with the cue ball, I need to end up on this side of the 8 ball, making for a much tougher shot for my opponent. Here's a situation that comes up quite often in 8 ball. In this game, I'm on the 1 ball, but I don't have a good offensive shot. The good news is that the 12 ball is close to the 1 ball, which means I can shoot into the 1 ball with a little draw, leaving the cue ball next to the 12. This is a great little safety shot that comes up quite often in 8 ball, but is often overlooked since we're not technically hooking our opponent. Here's another 8 ball example. I'm on the solids and my 6 ball is tied up. I could pocket the 7 and try to get shape for the 5 for a breakout shot on the 6, but this would be extremely difficult to pull off. And when playing 8 ball, it's often a good idea to try to avoid the low percentage runouts. So in this situation, I'm going to shoot the 6 ball toward the end rail, leaving the cue ball next to the 9 ball. This is a fairly easy shot to pull off, and it leaves my opponent in a really bad situation. A safety that comes up quite often in 9 ball is sending the cue ball around the table to the rack area. The reason this shot comes up quite often in 9 ball and 10 ball games is that after the break there are usually 2 or 3 balls near the rack area. So this makes a great target area for hiding the cue ball. For instance, in this game of 9 ball, I'm on the 5 ball and I need to play a decent safety. So in this shot, I'm going to aim the 5 ball toward the first diamond with just a touch of left spin. The goal in this shot is to leave the 5 ball in this area while sending the cue ball toward the rack area. Be careful when you try this shot that you don't use too much left spin, which will send the cue ball toward the side pocket. Here's a variation of this type of safety. In this 9 ball game, I'm on the 4 ball and I need to hide the cue ball. Once again, if I send the cue ball toward the rack area, it looks like I should have a decent safety. So in this shot, I'll be banking the 4 ball toward the first diamond using right side spin. The spin will send the cue ball toward the side rail and down to the rack area. Your main priority on shots like this is to make sure the object ball gets to the target area along the end rail, in case you're not able to hide the cue ball. In this 8 ball game, I'm on the solids and my 1 ball is tied up with the 11 ball. In this shot, I'm going to attempt to break out the 1 ball and send the cue ball 4 rails behind the rack. This shot doesn't require a lot of speed. You'll be striking the 1 ball thin with running English. In this 9 ball example, we're going to try to bank the 4 ball behind the 8 and 5 while sending the cue ball to the rack area. When executed properly, these are powerful safeties since you're putting a lot of distance between both balls. In this 9 ball game, I'll be sending the object ball 3 rails to the rack area. The good news is that if struck correctly, the cue ball should end up behind this cluster of balls here. One shot that comes up quite often in 9-ball and 8-ball is using high action to send the cue ball behind blocker balls. In our first example, we're playing 9-ball and we don't have a good offensive shot on the 4-ball. One safety we could play would be to thin the 4, sending the cue ball behind this cluster. While this works, the safety we're going to try puts more distance between the cue ball and 4-ball. In this shot, we're going to send the 4-ball to the other half of the table and use high action to put the cue ball behind the blocker balls. In this game of 9-ball, we'll be playing a safety on the 5-ball. We could bank the 5 over here and leave the cue ball in this area behind the 8 and 7 ball. While this works, a better safety is to use high action so the cue ball bounces off the side rail, ending up closer to the 8 and 7. Here's a common high action safety that comes up quite often in 9-ball. I'll be banking the 5-ball 2 rails toward the top side rail and sending the cue ball behind the 8 and 6. Here's another example of banking the 5-ball 2 or 3 rails and sending the cue ball behind blocker balls. In this game of 8-ball, I don't have a good offensive shot on the 1-ball. A good defensive shot is to bank the 1-ball 2 rails, sending the cue ball behind the 8-ball. Make sure you spend some time practicing these types of safeties so you can develop a feel for them. Kick safeties come up quite often in 9-ball games, and when struck correctly, they create distance between the cue ball and object ball. In this 9-ball game, I'm going to recreate a safety that was played in the 2018 Mosconi Cup. The goal in this shot is to come off the rail using center high and a touch of left spin. This should send the 5-ball toward the other half of the table. If you can strike the 5-ball full, it will kill the cue ball behind the 8-ball. These are very common safeties, but they require practice to develop a feel as to where you need to hit the rail before striking the object ball. In this 9-ball game, I'm on the 5-ball and I need to play a safety. If I can send the cue ball off the rail hitting the 5-ball full, it should send the 5-ball toward the other half of the table. Here's another example of sending the object ball to the other half of the table. On this shot, I'll be using left spin, which allows the cue ball to head toward the object ball at this angle, sending the 2-ball around the blocker balls. Notice that if I just use center high and struck the 2-ball full, the 2-ball will be sent toward the 7 and 6 ball. Here's a slight variation of this type of safety. In this game of 9-ball, I'm on the 5-ball and I could just use a kick shot to send the 5-ball up table, leaving a long shot for my opponent. But a better option is to strike this side of the 5-ball when I come off the rail. This sends the cue ball toward the side rail behind the 6 and 9 ball. And you'll sometimes see strong players roll out to a position like this in 9-ball. Even though they've rolled out to a shot where they're snookered, they know that it won't take much to kick the 2-ball and send the cue ball toward the 8-ball area. Concentrate on just striking the right side of the object ball when you come off the rail. And it's actually a fairly easy shot to control once you get the hang of it. In this game of 8-ball, we're on the stripes but our 15 ball is tied up with the 8-ball. We have enough room to pocket the 13 ball past the 11, but it's still a difficult shot. And if we did make it, we still have to deal with a 15 ball. A good option here is to break out the 15 while leaving our opponent safe. And we do this by coming off the end rail first, then striking the 15 ball. This type of shot is actually much easier than it looks. When struck correctly, it should leave the cue ball next to the object ball for an effective safety. One safety shot that comes up quite often is the carom safety. shooting the object ball off another ball changing its path. In this game of 9 ball, we're on the 5 ball, we need to play a safety. If we can send the 5 ball to this area and use the 7 and 9 ball as blockers, we should have a lockup safety. Since we can't cut the 5 ball to this area, we're going to perform a carom safety. And we'll do this by shooting the 5 ball into this half of the 8 ball, changing its path toward this side of the table. These types of safeties come up quite a bit. It's a great way to change the object ball's path with very little effort. In this game of 9 ball, we're on the 4 ball and we would like to play a lockup safety. Ideally, we would like to send the 4 ball up table and have the cue ball end up in this area next to the 9 and 7 ball. If we can perform a carom safety by playing the 4 ball off the side of the 6 ball, the 4 ball should head toward the other half of the table. Take your time when performing these types of shots. Really lock in on what part of the ball you need to strike with the object ball. Here's a similar shot. We'll be playing the 3 ball and putting the cue ball behind the 5 ball. My goal when shooting this shot is to have the 3 ball strike the left side of the 4 ball. In this game of 9 ball, we would like to send the 5 ball to the other half of the table and put the cue ball behind the 6 ball. If I shoot the 5 ball off the side of the 8 ball, I may not have the angle to send the cue ball behind the 6 ball. But if I can send the 5 ball off the rail first before striking the 8 ball, now I have the angle to send the cue ball to my target area. If you ever watch professional matches, one safety they tend to use over and over again is the draw safety. In this game of 9 ball, we have a tough shot on the 4 ball. And if you're not comfortable with this type of cut shot, one defensive option would be to use low action to draw the cue ball behind the 5 ball. When performed correctly, you not only hide the cue ball, but you're also putting distance between both balls. Here's an easier example of this type of shot. In this layout, we'll be banking the 4 ball to the other side rail, putting the cue ball behind the 6 and 7 ball. In this game of 9 ball, we're on the 3 ball and we would like to play a lockup safety. Whenever you're playing 8 ball or 9 ball, always look for balls that are near a rail like this. They make great blocker balls if you can get your cue ball behind them. So in this example, I'll be drawing the cue ball straight back off the side rail and below the 6 and 8 ball. Here's another example of this type of draw safety. Here's a similar example, except this time I just have 1 ball to hide behind. This shot takes a little more skill to execute since we're hiding behind only 1 ball. Take your time when aiming since you really need to control the cue ball's path. In this 9 ball layout, I'm on the 4 ball, but I don't have a good offensive shot. I would like to hide the cue ball behind the 6 and 7 ball, but I can't draw straight back to this area. But if I draw straight back to the side rail, I can bank the cue ball behind the 6 and 7. When performing the shot, find your target area on the side rail that you need to send the cue ball toward. Then determine where you need to strike the object ball to send the cue ball to this point on the rail. Sometimes you'll see a strong player play this type of shot when a ball is close to the rail, as in this game of 9 ball. In this game, I'll be striking the end rail right next to the 4 ball with left spin. This type of shot does 2 things. Number 1, you'll sometimes end up making the shot in the corner. And number 2, if you don't make the shot, the object ball usually ends up coming off the side rail, leaving your opponent tough. This shot works best when the object ball is just off the rail. Here's another example of coming off the rail first and then striking the object ball. In this game of 9 ball, I'm on the 7 ball but it's tied up with the 8. A nice shot here is to strike the 7 ball by coming off the rail first with running English. This keeps the 7 ball in the same area and sends the cue ball to the other end of the table. Here's a similar example, except in this situation I'm going to strike the cue ball with a very soft stroke. If executed properly, I should leave my opponent a tough kick shot. We're now going to go through several reverse spin safeties. These are safeties that use reverse spin to help kill the cue ball off the rails. In this first example, we're playing 9 ball and we're on the 7 ball. A nice safety here would be to bank the 7 toward the other end rail and leave the cue ball behind the 8 ball. When we shoot this shot, we'll be using reverse spin to not only kill the cue ball off the side rail, but also straighten its path when it comes off the rail. This can be a devastating safety when performed successfully. Here's a similar example of this type of safety. We'll be banking the 7 ball to the other side rail and leaving the cue ball behind the 8 ball. We'll be using right spin to kill the cue ball. In this game of 9 ball, I need to bank the 6 to the other side rail, leaving the cue ball behind the 7 ball. If I use reverse spin, it should kill the cue ball and straighten its path off the rail. Here's another example of this type of shot. Here's the longer version of this shot where I'll be using reverse spin to kill the cue ball below the 7 ball. And the key to this shot is learning how much of the object ball you need to strike in order to hold the cue ball behind the blocker ball. In this 8 ball game, I'm on the solids and I can either try the bank shot on the 7 ball or I can play a safety by putting the cue ball behind the 7 ball. When I shoot this shot, I'll be using a soft speed with reverse spin. Being able to see the tangent line off object balls will take your safety game to another level. It allows you to be more precise in your cue ball path. For instance, in this game of 9 ball, we're on the 5 ball, we need to play a safety. If we can put the cue ball behind the 9 and 7 ball, we should have an effective safety. The first thing we'll do is make an educated guess as to what spot on the side rail we need to send the cue ball toward. If we can send the cue ball to this target on the cushion, the cue ball should head toward the end rail and into our hiding area. Now that we know where our target is on the side rail, we'll hold our pull cue alongside the 5 ball and point it toward this spot on the cushion. We'll then visualize a 90-degree line that goes through the 5 ball. This line will tell us where we need to aim the 5 ball toward using a sliding cue ball. Here's another example of using the tangent line to send the cue ball behind blocker balls. I'll first find the spot on the end rail that I need to send the cue ball toward. If I can send the cue ball to this spot here, it looks like the cue ball should head toward the area behind the blocker balls. I'll then hold the cue stick alongside the 5 ball and visualize a 90-degree line that goes through the 5 ball. When you're practicing, place a piece of chalk on the cushion to mark this target. Now aim the object ball toward this target using a sliding cue ball. In this layout, we're going to send the cue ball behind the 7 ball. And we'll first make an educated guess as to what point on the cushion we need to send the cue ball toward. Now we'll put our cue stick alongside the object ball and point it toward this spot on the cushion. Visualize the 90-degree line that goes through the object ball. When you first try this, it may take a little while before you can visualize the lines, but the more you practice, the easier it becomes. In this game, I'll be using a sliding cue ball to put the cue ball behind the 9 ball. So I'll find my target on the end rail and then visualize the line going through the 7 ball. I now have my target on the side rail to aim the 7 ball toward. So here are the steps. First, find a target on the cushion to send the cue ball toward. Then place the cue stick alongside the object ball and point it toward this spot on the cushion. Next, find the 90-degree line that goes through the object ball. This now tells you where to aim the object ball. And remember, if the cue ball isn't sliding when it strikes the object ball, the cue ball path to the cushion will be affected. Set up practice drills where you're using a sliding cue ball to strike balls along the side rail. When performing sliding cue ball shots, the speed and where you strike the cue ball at are directly connected. To learn more about sliding cue ball shots, we should be posting the sliding cue ball section from Secrets 3 very soon on Patreon. When playing safety, it's a big advantage if you know where the object ball is going to end up. For instance, in this game of 9 ball, I'm on the 2 ball and I need to play a safety. If I can strike the 4 ball full with the 2 ball should stop near this area. Knowing this, if I can put the cue ball on the other side of the 9 ball, I should have an effective safety. Here's another example of shooting the object ball into another ball. In this game of 9 ball, I'm going to shoot the 3 into the 5 ball with low right spin. My goal is to strike the 5 ball full with the 3 ball, stopping the 3 ball in the same area, while sending the cue ball to the end rail behind the 9 ball. In this example, I'll be sending the 6 ball into the 7 while sending the cue ball 3 rails behind the 8 and 9 ball. This shot can also be used in 8 ball. In this game, I'm playing solids and I'm on my last ball, the 3 ball. I know that if I shoot the 3 into the 11 ball, the 3 ball will stay within this area. Knowing this, I can have the cue ball roll toward the side rail, making for a very effective safety. In this game of 9 ball, I can either try a difficult backward cut on the 3 ball, or I can shoot the 3 into another ball. If I shoot the 3 ball directly into the 7 ball, the cue ball won't move anywhere since it's a straight shot. But a good option here is to bank the 3 off the end rail and into the 7 ball. This helps kill the 3 ball's speed while allowing us to move the cue ball behind the 5 ball. In this game of 9 ball, I'm on the 2 ball but I don't have a good offensive shot. If I can shoot the 2 into the 7 ball, that will keep the 2 ball at that end of the table. Since I know the 2 ball will be at that end of the table, I'll draw the cue ball back behind the 9 ball. One safety that you'll see 9 ball players play quite often is sending the cue ball and object ball to different ends of the side rail. In this 9 ball game, I'm going to send the cue ball and 4 ball to the bottom side rail. I can either end up here with the cue ball, or I can use a little more speed to send the cue ball down to the end rail behind the 7 or 9 ball. In this game of 9 ball, once again I'm going to send the cue ball and object ball to the bottom side rail. If you're playing against an opponent who is good at jumping, a safety like this may not work. So if you are playing against a good jumper, shoot the shot with less side spin. This will send the cue ball farther down the side rail. Here's a variation on this shot where I'll be sending the cue ball and object ball to the top side rail, since there are 3 blocker balls there to help hide the cue ball. This shot requires running English and a firm stroke. In this game of 9-ball, I'm on the 1 ball and I have a tough shot on the 1 ball for the corner pocket to get my position on the 3 ball. In situations like this where there's a blocker ball next to the object ball, it won't take much to hide the cue ball. In this shot, I'm going to be striking about 95% of the object ball. If struck correctly, the cue ball should slide over behind the blocker ball. Here's another example of sliding the cue ball behind a blocker ball. In this shot, I'll be striking about 90% of the object ball. This is a very effective safety shot, but requires practice to develop a feel as to how much of the object ball you need to strike in order to send the cue ball behind the blocker ball. Sometimes it helps to shoot the object ball into another ball so you can slide the cue ball over behind the blocker ball. Make sure you use enough speed so that one of the balls is sent to a rail. Here's a typical shot that comes up quite often in 9-ball. In this shot, I'll be shooting the 1 ball and sliding over behind the 2 ball. When many players play this shot, they tend to leave too much room between the cue ball and blocker ball. Make sure you really focus on putting the cue ball close to the blocker ball. One skill you'll need to develop to become a strong safety player is being able to strike balls extremely thin. With a little practice, it won't take long to become adept at these types of safeties. They usually come in handy when there are very few balls on the table. For instance, in this game of 8-ball, we're on the 8 ball and we have a very difficult shot for the corner pocket. And if we're not comfortable trying this shot, then we can settle for a lockup safety. In this shot, we're going to feather the 8 ball and put the cue ball between the 8 ball and side rail. This shot requires an extremely thin hit with delicate speed. You can shoot this with center or a touch of right spin. This shot takes a little bit of practice, but it's a great shot to get down since it can be used quite often in 8-ball games. In this 9-ball game, we're on the 3 ball and we need to feather the 3, hooking my opponent with the 7 ball. In this 8-ball game, I left myself here without a good shot on the solids. If I can thin the 5 ball, I can leave the cue ball near the end rail, leaving my opponent a tough shot. In this 9-ball game, I'll be thinning the 3 ball, sending the cue ball to the other end rail, hopefully behind the 6 and 9 ball. When trying this shot, concentrate on an extremely thin hit on the 3 ball. This shot requires very little side spin. Here's an endgame scenario in 8-ball where we can either go all out for the bank shot, or we can thin the 8 ball, leaving the cue ball on the other end rail. If you're not comfortable with a bank shot, you can try thinning the 8 ball, sending the cue ball to the other end rail. And we're going to be using running English on this shot to help move the cue ball toward the end rail. If you're struggling at this shot, you may want to try shooting it with just center and see if that makes it easier for you to execute the shot. When possible, it's often a good idea to go 2 rails toward the blocker ball. This gives you a better chance at locking up the cue ball with the blocker ball. For instance, in this 9-ball game, I'm on the 6 ball and I need to play a lockup safety behind the 7 and 8 ball. I could bank the 6 and just float the cue ball over to this area, but I don't want too much space between the cue ball and blocker balls. So when I shoot the 6 ball, I'm going to use low left to go 2 rails toward the 7 ball. Since the cue ball will be traveling toward the 7 ball, we have a good chance of getting close to it for a very effective safety. Here's another situation where I'll be going 2 rails toward the blocker balls. It sometimes helps to visualize the cue ball path before shooting the shot. These shots can really lock up an opponent when successfully executed. In this 9-ball game, I'm on the 2 ball and I need to play a lockup safety. I could float the cue ball 1 rail to this area behind the 8 ball. While this works, a better option is to go 2 rails and try to get as close as possible to the 8 ball. Ending up this close to the blocker ball makes it a much tougher safety, since you're limiting the rails the opponent can use to kick at the ball. In the next section, we're going to go through several scenarios in both 9-ball and 8-ball. Study each pattern and try to determine the best defensive strategy. We'll first start with 9-ball patterns.